Hello there and welcome to saberduelgaming, and with WrestleMania on the horizon, we take a look at the top 10 WWE and WWF games you need to play, and if you'd like any more detailed reviews on these games, please comment the name of the game below. First, a dishonourable mention goes out to 2K20, a game so poorly built that it actually has to be played. The glitches are nightmare fuel. This is genuinely horrifying to look at and agonising to play. But if you want to learn to appreciate what you've got, by God, check this out. Number 10. WWF Superstars on the Game Boy. The first ever WWF game to be on a handheld device, WWF Superstars had a roster of 5 wrestlers, which sounds pretty poor by modern standards, but at this point bear in mind the home consoles usually only had about 8. And what a roster it was too. All the favourites were there. The combat was very limited, it was one-on-one, there was no gimmick matches, it was all very basic, but it was still pretty entertaining, and the pre and post match banter between the wrestlers really livened things up and kept it fun. Number 9. WWF Royal Rumble on the SNES and Genesis. The leap up between the Master System and the NES up to the SNES and the Genesis was massive, and suddenly they had a much bigger roster, brighter, more colourful graphics, the wrestlers had their own special finishing moves, and as well as having a Royal Rumble, finally we could use weapons, with steel chairs available to use on the outside. Still basic, but damn fun. Number 8. WWF Attitude. Following on from the dismal WWF Warzone, Attitude added a proper career mode where you could choose a character and take him all the way through the titles up to the main event. A bigger roster, better gameplay and graphics. This was the start of better things. Number 7. WWE 13 on the Xbox 360. The last game before they moved in towards the 2K series, it was undoubtedly the peak at this time for the next gen consoles. The main feature being the WWE Attitude era, which looks back at the key points through that period from the perspectives of The Undertaker, Mankind, D-Generation X, Stone Cold Steve Austin and more. If for no other reason than that mode alone, it would be worth playing. But the game modes and controls were fantastic, and this game was definitely one to play. Number 6. Day of Reckoning. It took 3 attempts for the Nintendo GameCube to finally get a decent WWE game, and Day of Reckoning was that game. As well as the combat being much improved from previous games and the graphics finally catching up with what was happening on the PlayStation and Xbox, Day of Reckoning got its own story mode. It may not have been better than the ones on the other consoles, but it had something of its own, and that was good enough. Number 5. WWE Legends of WrestleMania. Nowadays, all of the wrestling games are littered with retro arenas, retro wrestlers, wrestlers from the 80s, 90s and onwards, but at this point they weren't, and WWE Legends of WrestleMania absolutely bombarded us with some of the best of the past, from the Legion of Doom, the Hart Foundation, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, as well as retro arenas and commentary. This was so much fun to play. Number 4. WrestleMania 2000 on the Nintendo 64. Taking the engine, control and graphics from WCW World Tour and WCW Revenge, which at the time were by far the best wrestling games around, and adding all of the glitz and glamour of the WWF, the better wrestlers, the better music, and what we suddenly had was the best wrestling game of its day. Whilst the single player mode was kind of limited, the rest of this game was fantastic, with brilliant introductions, custom characters, creator modes. Everything was world class, and it would take something very special to beat it. Number 3. WWE SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain. Back before the 2K series even existed, PlayStation's SmackDown series was the gaming franchise, with the other consoles just desperately trying to hang in there. And this was the peak of it. All of the best wrestlers were here at this point. All of the game modes had been honed to the peak of perfection. For the SmackDown series, this was its pinnacle. Number 2. WWE 2K16. The most modern of the games on this list, WWE's 2K16 was potentially the peak of that franchise. The controls were great, the roster was fantastic, but for me what made it was the 2K Showcase mode. While this has been included on various other 2K games, the fact that this told the career of one of the most popular stars of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin, absolutely makes the game. Add to that all the bells and whistles you'd come to expect from the 2K series, and we have a win. And the number one wrestling game that you have to play is WWF No Mercy on the Nintendo 64. And everyone knew this was going to be it, let's be honest. This took the gameplay and mechanics from WrestleMania 2000 and added everything else it could possibly need. A bigger roster, bigger arenas, the option to go and fight backstage and beyond. You could use more weapons, there was ladder matches, you could break tables. Everything you needed was in this game. It had its own in-game store where you could buy unlockable weapons and accessories for your characters. Single player mode was exceptional as well, allowing you to branch out and go in different directions, so everyone's experience was completely different. This was the perfect wrestling game, and you have to play it. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe. What's your favourite wrestling game? Disagree? Please follow us over on TikTok and Instagram, as well as right here on YouTube.